Hey guys, welcome to the Tyrant Network. I'm your host, Corey Frederick, and I'm off the mat today with Tyler Hemmesch from Matboss. Tyler, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Corey. Enjoy being here and talking with you every time.
So I'll just kind of give in a nutshell how I met you real quick, and then I'd love to hear, all about you and your company and everything that you guys have built. So right before Columbus Day duels back in September, probably about a week or a little less than a week, I reached out to you and I just had heard about Matt Boss from Stephen Curtis, our head evaluator, our tournaments, and it was a program that he wanted to use. And, we got you on the phone and just got the quick and skinny about your company and all the benefits you guys offer. But really what impressed me aside from that was you jumped on a plane with less than a week's notice and you came to our tournament. And it was the first time I think you've ever been to one of our tournaments. It's the largest tournament. We ran 92 mats, 184 teams from all across the country. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's to our audience. That's how I met you. It was just back in September, less than a month ago. Got to find out some information about Matt Boss. You jumped on a plane. You were like, yeah, let me come check it out. And really, aside from like just meeting and seeing what Tyrant does, you seized the opportunity to be able to jump in front of over 120 officials at the conference that we had for the NWOA. And then you also had an opportunity to be able to meet and greet, almost 200 coaches and tell them about Matt Boss. So kind of before we get into Matt Boss, why don't you just give us a little bit of background about you, kind of how you grew up, your wrestling background, just things like that, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that event was crazy. It was a quick turnaround to come out there and meet you guys, but it was a unbelievable experience. I just first and foremost didn't know there was an event that had 92 mats on the floor. So part of the reason for coming out there is I just had to see how that worked, right? And it was wild. You guys did an unbelievable job out there. But yeah, so I grew up in Minnesota. I started wrestling preschool, kindergarten, somewhere in that time frame. In Minnesota, hockey is everything, and there was no way my dad was paying for ice time, right? And it was just like, here's shorts and shoes and let's wrestle. And so started wrestling at a young age. I was always one of the biggest kids, so didn't have a lot of competition my age. So I was always getting registered as a kid, a grade a couple years older. Now I think they make you prove how old you are, so you're wrestling kids your age. But I grew up wrestling, started wrestling freestyle and Greco like in third and fourth grade, and that really made me fall in love with the sport. Probably the most. I enjoyed wrestling that style quite a bit better than anything else. But wrestled high school in Minnesota. I was a four-time state place winner at 189 pounds and then 215 pounds in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. But then I ended up getting a scholarship. I wrestled at North Dakota State. I got recruited as a heavyweight right after they became Division One, and wrestled up there for 2 years. I was not a big enough heavyweight at Division One, and then I had some health issues and injuries with my knee, and I ended up giving it up after my second year. But I started as a true freshman, and then my sophomore season went about 500 and before giving it up. But studied business and then came home and started coaching after that. And in the summers, I wrestled on the Minnesota national team for cadet duels and junior duels, and then I was a 4 or 5 time All-American at Fargo as well too. So I was on the mat a lot growing up, and was excited to get home and start coaching. And I coached all the way up until I started Matboss, and that really took my time away from being able to be on the mat and to focus on what other coaches needed and starting this company. So I miss coaching and wrestling all the time, but I really enjoy still being in and around the sport.
How old are you again?
I will turn 37 in a month.
Yeah. So kind of an in between, younger than me, but older than my boys, or like when I was coaching. So you were big. So did you play any other sports or strictly just wrestle year round?
I played football too, and uh, all the way through high school, and actually it got recruited in to play football as well too. But wrestling was I was better at wrestling than I was at football. What was hard about football is unfortunately I grew up playing on a team that was terrible, so getting recruited was tough. But still had some offers to play football, but ended up wrestling. Yep.
And then it was to me, it was kind of funny to hear that did you wrestle Greco too, or no? Because I feel like Minnesota is known more for Greco.
Yeah, I did wrestle freestyle and Greco. I was best, or I always competed best in Greco more than anything else. If I could go back, I probably would have went to Northern Michigan or something instead of trying to wrestle heavyweight, and wrestled at that 210 weight class at Northern Michigan. But Fargo, my second year as a cadet, I had cut down hard to wrestle 189, and I ended up taking second in Fargo. And halfway through the tournament, when I was doing well, I was like, "Well, I'm not as good at freestyle, so I'm just gonna bump up and not keep my weight down." And so I ended up wrestling freestyle in the second half of that tournament. And the first round of freestyle ended up drawing the kid that just won Greco, Dom Bradley.
Oh,
And
geez.
I ended up beating Dom the first round, and then I went all the way through the bracket and won freestyle at 215. So I took a runner up in Greco at 189, and I didn't care as much about freestyle, and so I bumped up, and then I ended up winning freestyle. I was just faster at that weight class than other wrestlers, and so it was a wild tournament, but it ended up working out. But I loved Greco probably more than anything.
And this is like honestly, like none of this is pre-scripted, so I just firing from the hip. But like you mentioned, you didn't care as much. Now maybe that wasn't the best choice of words, but what I want to ask is though, do you think that you had was there other things, or do you think that attitude or that perspective, like your mindset, like you didn't have as much pressure on yourself, you weren't expecting to go out there, maybe there wasn't as much pressure. Like, do you think that contributed to how successful you were by going up a weight?
Possibly. I shouldn't have said I didn't care as much. I had had a lot more success in Greco, especially wrestling against, at Western regionals and Northern Plains and everything else. I just had more success at Greco. And so I guess I'd kind of focused more on that. And the cut was all, I didn't cut weight a lot at all in my career. And so that cut felt awful. And I didn't want to keep my weight down. And so I think it was a few things. I mean, one is like, it just felt good to be able to not keep my weight down, and I was more comfortable and happy, I guess, going into the freestyle portion than Greco. I mean, it was a week I mean, it was a grind, right? It cut. I mean, I started national camp like a week before at like 30 pounds over, right? And I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this and go. And so I was a lot more comfortable. I also had a coach or an assistant coach on the team that was really upset with me for not keeping my weight down. So it was almost like a motivator as well. And I was like, this tournament's more about the individual, not the team. I did everything I needed to do for our national team. And so I think when he was just like, he was against me going into it, I think that was probably one of my biggest motivators. And then just feeling more comfortable and natural at the weight I was at kind of led to that success. And then when I ended up beating that kid the first round of the tournament, Dom, which Dom had beaten me many times before that. So I got the upper hand in that match. But once I did that, I was like, holy crap, I have a chance. And then, to really make a dent in this bracket, and then went after it. So I think it was a mixture of a lot of things. But it was a heck of a week up in Fargo though.
Good. Well, real quick too, because I'm from Delaware, and it's like, yeah, we're surrounded by Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, really a bunch of other states that are, close by too. But specifically in Delaware, like a lot of people just want to wrestle folk style. And it's like pulling teeth to get people to wrestle freestyle and Greco. Now, I'll say when I was younger, I feel like the resources weren't there like they are nowadays. So I never touched the mat in freestyle or Greco. I never experienced it until I was a coach. But how you started in like third grade, like in Minnesota, was it just natural that everybody would flip styles, let's say in the spring and summer, or were there certainly still people that would only do folk style? Or like how beneficial do you think it was to you and your overall success, even on the folk style side, but to wrestle freestyle Greco in the off season and not just do folk style year round?
Yeah, I think it was super important. I mean, the styles, and when I'd come back from college, I had pushed it even harder in our area and started our freestyle program up, or back up, I should say. But I think the style of wrestling in just, everybody talks about Ben Askren and his funk style wrestling, right? And how that really changed a lot in college wrestling. Well, I think that's freestyle to a T, right? I mean, like you're learning to scrap more, you're learning to chain wrestle. I mean, all those type of things. And so yeah, I think in just getting in weird positions and figuring out how to score and not exposing your back and things like that. I mean, it just teaches you a different style. And then the other thing is the time spent on the mat helps, instead of when folk style season ends and taking that time off, getting that time on the mat. Now, I think in Minnesota, back then, I think a lot more kids did it. I think and I've always been a huge promoter of USA Wrestling and what it does. And I think the hard part about wrestling right now is that you have other organizations that are not necessarily freestyle specific that run in the spring and whatnot as well too. And the hard part is they overlap with the freestyle season. And so in Minnesota, it was NYWA, and other states, it's the My Ways and New Ways and whatever. And I wish that they would align better with the freestyle season. They usually overlap by a few weeks, and the freestyle season isn't very long. And by the time that youth organizations get done with that, they're already into like regionals or everything else in freestyle, and so they don't end up wrestling it. If it ended at a better time frame of when the USA Wrestling season started, I think you'd get more kids wrestling freestyle. And I think you know, I just think the kids, I mean, you can go through. I remember as a kid, my dad and I going to the state tournament all the time, and my dad would highlight the kids on the podium that wrestled in the freestyle Greco season as well too. And it felt like, 4 out of 6 or whatever, 6 out of 8 kids on the podium were wrestling freestyle, and it proved to us that obviously the kids that are having the most success on the folk style side of things are putting in that time in the spring season. So I just committed myself to that same thing, but I enjoyed that style wrestling better too.
I mean, when we, as a coach, when I started introducing freestyle and basically saying we're not doing folk style anymore at a certain point in time of the year, I lost a lot of kids in my club program. They would go other places, or the dad only wanted them. A lot of times I think it was the parents. It wasn't even the kids, right? They didn't know it. So they do it. Even now, as like a tournament director, like we've attempted to do freestyle a couple of times, albeit we could do a better job, or just never got around to doing it like we did folk style. But like I can drop down a folk style tournament really any time of the year, and people are going to show up. When I'm doing freestyle, it's like banging your head against the wall to try to get people to come. Or unless it's a big time dual tournament, the individual tournament, it's going to be like crickets. There's just not going to be that many people to show up. And it's just got to be worth, having it, whether it's for the attendees or the organizers or whatever. But I definitely see the value. Was your family a wrestling family, or are you the first one to wrestle in your family? Like, did your dad wrestle?
My dad didn't. My dad grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota, and they were forced, not forced. They were only allowed to compete in one sport, right? Because the other seasons of the year they had to do chores on the farm, right? And so my dad played football all the way through. My dad had a brother. He grew up in a family of 11, but he had a brother that ended up wrestling, and then my mom had two brothers that wrestled, and so they were familiar with it. But then my older brother's 4 years older. He started wrestling the year before I did. And so we got into the sport that way. But my dad hadn't wrestled at all, and then ended up running our youth wrestling because we were involved with it. And he was good at the organization part of it. And so he ran our youth wrestling for years. But I guess kind of the first generation in my family in a way, with some uncles that had some experience in it though. Yeah.
Right. So you get out of college, you come back home, you're coaching. Did you ever have a real job, or did you just jump right into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so my real job to start with was I sold insurance. I did property casualty insurance. My reason behind that was I had my own schedule. I had my own book of business with it, and I also felt like I knew everyone in my area where I grew up. And so along with coaching and everything else, it allowed me to grow at and kind of unlimited potential with that. And so I first started. I sold insurance, I think, for 6 or 7 years. The guy that I got started with was one of my assistant coaches. And so I was able to see him coach and run insurance and make good money doing it. And so it was kind of a no-brainer. And for me, it was insurance is something that everyone has to have. So why not buy it for me if I know you, right? And so I did that and coached wrestling and football when I first came back prior to starting Matboss. Yeah.
So then, all right, tell us how you came up with this idea and just the whole history of it, because I know you're one of the founders. I know there are some different companies and things like that, but how did you come up with this idea? How did you take the leap into, being self-employed and giving up a paycheck and all those types of things?
Yeah. So when I came back from college, I was coaching football and wrestling. In football, right after I had graduated high school, a company that most people are familiar with is Huddle had come out. And I thought it was the greatest software in the world from the football side of things. And I wished more than anything there would have been something like that when I had come through. It just would have been easier in general. But fell in love with that. It was built specifically for football. and then it had really expanded and tried to work in other sports. And so when I was coaching wrestling then at our high school level, our team at that point that I was coaching at was not doing anything for video. I was an assistant coach at that time, and I was like, listen, we use this in football. The software is amazing. Like, let me reach out and see if it works for wrestling too. And the sales rep at that time had sold me on, oh, yeah, it's great for wrestling as well too. And so I had told those coaches, don't worry, I got this. I'll run it. Like, it's the simplest thing ever. I went from ending the football season in love with it to immediately hating it within weeks of the wrestling season starting. It just was, it wasn't a different product at the time. It was still the exact same platform. I should have looked into it better at the time, but I spent way more time trying to get huddle organized than I was even on the mat with our athletes, right? And by the time it was said and done, it was still just this video library. Like I felt like I could have done the same thing in Google Drive, nowadays for the athletes. And so I had reached out to our the huddle sales rep, and I was just like, do you guys take feedback? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, if I give you feedback about how to change this for wrestling, will you turn it into the right people at Huddle? And Huddle was growing it. They weren't as big, nearly as big as they are now, but I was like, we give this to the right people to build this better for our sport. And at that time, I had no thought of doing anything on my own at all. And I had started to make notes. I wish I had the original notebook, but like I had started to make a ton of notes about how and why, and I drew out pages of exactly how it should work. And by the end of it, like what I should have or what I was going to give to him, I was just like, there is no way I'm handing this over to Huddle, right? Like I've just completely designed a platform for wrestling. And so at the time, when I was, my high school wrestling coach was a self-taught computer programmer, developer, taught computer science at the high school, along with math. And so I'd gone into his office the one day, and I was just like, "Hey, I have this thought and this idea." And at the time, his name's John Peterson. John was also helping at the high school league level. He was running tournaments with tournament software he'd created on his own. And I was like, I think this is the future, right? Of like what needs to happen and how it works. Like these football products and basketball products, they're never going to give the attention to wrestling. And so I brought him the idea and I'm like, what do you think you can do? And so he's like, let me take a stab at trying to build out what you have. And so I think like a month had gone by and he's like, I think we could build this. And then it turned into him and I meeting maybe once a week for like 9 months. At the time and still today, I won't say I know anything about coding and programming. Uh, but we would meet and it would just be like, no, this needs to change, this needs to tweak. When I'd look at his screen, it was like a different language to me. I had no idea what was going on until we had our first prototype. Um, and then we had launched our app at that time. It was originally called Matchmaker. The story behind that was back in the day, there was a guy at a tournament called the Matchmaker who put the brackets together. So we had called it Matchmaker. And when we tried to put it on the internet and advertise it, it was behind hundreds of dating sites and hookup sites and everything else. Like it was terrible. You could not find it, right? It was buried on Google. And so, and then what kind of a funny story was, is we had started it as Matchmaker and then we had still ran our tournament software at that time. And somebody had approached us about putting ads on our tournament software. I didn't know anything about it. Our developer was like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. The very first tournament that season, we got a call like 5 minutes into the tournament and they were like, what are you doing on this site? Like, look at the ads. And we're like, holy crap. And we went over to the user side. It was all dating sites and like the most graphic images of different stores that you can buy things. I mean, it was awful. We put zero filters on the ads and they just used the Matchmaker name to figure out what ads to put on the site. It was terrible. So we originally tore down the name or tore down the ads that knew we had to change our name after that. And then uh that after that first season, the guys that owned Intermat Wrestling or Rev Wrestling, also Minnesota guys, had approached us. They had saw the app, they saw the potential with it. We had sold part of the company to them, which allowed me to quit selling insurance and John, who I'd started it with, John was teaching. He was in his late 50s, I think, at that time. Um, but he had walked away from teaching, and we just went all in and we rebranded to Matboss at that time. Way better name. And kind of the rest is history from there. And we just have grown ever since. So we're going on our 10th season as Matboss now.
So, one, I want to hear about the product. So, coaches and wrestlers and, everybody out there can understand what's available to them as a resource and hopefully, register or sign up with you. But then two, like I'm always really curious or interested in, the whole business side of things. So when you first started this, was it more like, hey, I need to get something for my team and we need to be able to do video review, or some video with them so we can go over, technique and things like that? Or from the jump, did you realize that you had this business idea and you had a vision and you were planning to grow it, or did it just happen naturally?
Um, it definitely wasn't built originally for just our team, right? It was built like Huddle is doing this, right, in that sport. And we all know that wrestling in the realm of things of sports is always put to the back burner or the lowest priority, right? And it's non-revenue generating sports and things like that. But it was like, is this an option? Once I saw that we could build what we did, I knew immediately it was a product and a business, right? And then, you still need to get, uh, other coaches to buy into that, right? And so we had started originally then just to market it to the teams and the coaches that I knew best, right? I got them on a call similar to this. I showed them what we had. And at that time, it was just like mind blowing to them that there was something built just for wrestlers by wrestling guys, right? And our first convention that we went to, or uh, public convention in front of a bunch of coaches, was at Wisconsin. At that time, I think of the entire app, there was like 3 pages that actually worked, right? And so you'd give a demo and I'd show them what it could do. And then I'd be like, and you could imagine, and I'd flip to the next page that would work. And then I'd be like, see, and then this is it. And it was almost like fooling them, I'll say at the time about like, because we weren't done developing it yet, right? But we were still a month out from the season and we were close. Um, but as soon as we got it in front of coaches and saw their responses, I knew we had a home run in our sport of wrestling for sure. But at that time, still like, I mean, I was still originally, I was still doing insurance. So this was like, this was outside of that time, every waking moment. Now, that was just prior to getting married and everything too. So I was just investing every moment that I had into that because why not? But when I decided and I decided to go full time with it, and we went into Matboss and I gave up insurance, that was when I knew like it had to work, right? Even at that time, I think my wife and my in-laws and my family and everyone was like, "What are you doing? You've really built up an insurance career." And I'm like, "Can always go back to selling insurance, right? Like I'm not worried about that. That's not going anywhere." But if I don't take the plunge and go for this now, like I'll look back and always wonder why. And so uh, after that first year went full time, and it was just the two of us at that time, and we just went all in getting it in front of every face we possibly could. Yeah.
I mean, were you nervous yourself about going all in and leaving insurance that you worked so hard to build up, or was like a proven paycheck? Or did you just believe in yourself that much, or were you in a position in life where you could take that risk?
I was in a position, I guess, to take that risk, and the only reason I was in that position was I married my high school sweetheart. She had just gotten back and got a full-time job in nursing, and again, we didn't have kids. She was working as many hours as possible. I give a ton of credit to her for carrying the weight of paying the bills for a little while, right? But also like we didn't live outside our means like I feel like many young kids and especially young entrepreneurs think they should do. Uh, and so we didn't have a lot. I didn't have, I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have money thrown at me from mom and dad. It was like as a company from day one, we bootstrapped it. We didn't take on investment. We didn't do anything like that. And so my wife was there able to carry the weight of our personal expenses at that time. And it was just like, give me a year and a half, like to just make sure that this is going to work. And I'm also somebody though that like I don't know if Uber was even around necessarily then, but like I would have done anything, right, to just like make sure that our personal stuff was going to be fine. But she was working her butt off, and nurses make decent money, and so she carried the weight for us for a while until I really got it going, and then was able to to really help out at the house as well too. Yeah.
My experience has been I feel like that if people don't have experience being self-employed, business owners, entrepreneurs, like those are all the people that tell you or say, what are you doing? Or just,
Yeah.
take the safe route. But it's like everybody that's wired like us that has experience. It's kind of like I was talking to a buddy the other day, and his one, one of his best shots was just a high crotch. But I said, if you took 10 shots, how many times do you think you're scoring? And then we came up with, let's say, 8, right? So he's scoring 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, but then let's say one of those times, the ninth time, maybe you're going to get taken down. Let's say the 10th time you just get out. You don't get taken down, but you don't get a takedown. No big deal. I said, you're batting 800, like 800%. Like, just imagine that. Like, but I'm like, you do something so many times, hundreds and thousands of times, that it just becomes muscle memory, and you do it without thinking. I'm like, it's no different in the business world. You do something so many times, or you buy rental properties, or you build businesses, and
Right.
you know that you're going to succeed more often than not. And the times that you do, I don't even want to say fail. You don't fail. You just learn and you pivot and you go on to the next thing. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit, because I want to help you build this, and I know that we've partnered with you recently, both Tyrant Wrestling and the National Wrestling Officials Association. So if you have a few minutes here, kind of like at the coaches meeting or at the conference, everybody that's listening, our million subscribers, right?
Yeah.
Tell these coaches or anybody that what it would apply to, but why should they get Matboss? What can it do for them? How can it help them? Let's spread it to as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I would start with if a coach is not using Matboss right now, right? That what they're having to do is two different things. They're having to get stats and results and everything else for either required by the state for postseason criteria and things like that, but just to have stats. And then they're also trying to figure out a good way to do video, right? So you have teams that are out there capturing their own video or using Huddle or whatever it is, and that's just the video platform, a video library, and they're trying to figure out how to get access to their athletes and things like that. And then on top of that, which kind of blows my mind, but you still have coaches that are taking stats in a scorebook, paper and pencil, that old red scorebook that everyone used to have. They're still doing that. Um, our product is all in one. So as you're recording the match through our interface on our app, you're recording the match and then you're scoring it at the exact same time. As you're scoring that, that's taking obviously all of your stats and generating all of your stat reports, but it's also marking the exact spot in the video that the scoring took place, which is really important. So film review sessions for a lot of teams looks like still today looks like, hey, we're going to take the first half an hour, we're all going to go down to the computer lab, we're going to pull up our matches, and it's this like huge orchestrated ordeal to watch video. Now a team can pull up and they can say, all right, we're going to look at last night's duel. Last night's duel showed statistically that we got crushed on our feet. Let's look at the video and see just our takedowns against. And a coach can go through and look at specific scoring events that happened, like every time they got taken down, and watch those short clips, review it over and over, go to the next one, and just continue to watch that and rip through that video in a matter of minutes and kind of build a game plan. And a coach is able to say, that's why we're working on takedown defense today. Or our statistics will show things like from the bottom position, instead of what everyone's used to of just like, well, how many times have you gotten pinned? How many reversals and how many escapes? Our data shows you things like, what is your getaway percentage? What is the percentage of times that you get away before the period ends or you're pinned, right? And we can look at like, all right, our getaway percentage last night, like we didn't have a lot of escapes when we picked bottom. Let's look at just our bottom starts, right? Every time we chose bottom or they chose top. Let's look at our first move on bottom, right? And it's not great. That's why we're going to do 15 to 20-second goes in practice all day long on that first move nonstop to get away on bottom. I mean, it's just like a better analysis tool for all of your video and all of your stats. And our stats are the most in-depth stats by far in the sport. And it's not extra work. It's just if you're scoring the match correctly, right? Like the data is only as good as what you put into it. But if you're scoring the match correctly, we're able to extract everything, the first takedown percentage in a match and what that leads to, the number of takedowns and the percentage of times, all the way down to like what in our sport, we have a lot of new, young, green coaches that are just trying to help out. They don't always know the best position to take in the second and third period. Our data tells you the best position for each wrestler to choose in the second or third period based on where they're scoring the most amount of points or their scoring sequences of where they're scoring. And so it's all video, all stats, all in one platform. Everything is then uploaded to the cloud. All your athletes have access. They can download our app. They can log in anywhere, anytime to have access to all of those stats and all of their videos at all time. And then there's a lot of great coaching tools in there, like being able to draw on the video and make notes over the video, make full-blown match analysis, comments to the athletes, along with marking highlights. We have a highlight service that'll cut up all the highlights for coaches so they can make highlight videos faster than ever. There's a
I was
library area.
about that, right? So like at the end of the season, I want a highlight video for the banquet, or if I'm a kid that's, trying to get into college and get recruited. So you have a highlight feature in there as well. Like, give me all the takedowns, give me the reversals, give me this, give me that, and then boom, it'll cut it for you.
So it makes it super simple. I mean, you can filter down any scoring symbol like that. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of kids it might be hard to find a highlight for, right? But now it makes it easy. Like we're going to filter the video down to that kid and then any takedown or any near fall or any what reversal that it may be. And you can find those specific clips, add a highlight to that area, and then our system will go through and cut it all for you and send you back a file with all those cut up clips so you can dump it and make a highlight. And I think the cool thing about it is you can do it as many times as you want during the season, or you can do it once at the end of the year. My favorite is seeing teams that are now doing it weekly or every 2 weeks, and they're making shorter videos that they're able to then put on their social media platforms to grow their program or have more awareness for their program in the community or whatever else it may be to just get more eyes on the sport in their area. And so it's a great tool for them to be able to do it more often than ever or just easier than ever at the end of the season. And
Yeah.
then
So
your
if I,
note yeah, your comment about recruiting. So any athlete or coach, when they're watching a video, they can click to share and they're able to put in an email address and some notes. And so it makes it really easy for a kid getting recruited now to be able to take his last few matches, mark those videos, and then email those off directly to a college coach so they can watch those videos rather than always traveling to an event to be able to see them.
yeah. So aside from all the things you mentioned, but really the one thing is, let's say if mom or dad's video or the manager and the team, whatever, but if I'm video and I always say like an old school video camera, but like, your phone, your whatever, or I'm pulling it off of a live stream flow or whatever platform they're using. I've got to fast forward, rewind, try to find a video. I'm wasting tons and tons of time. Whereas if I'm using your program, I can go right to where I want to go in that match based off of the scoring system.
Correct. Yeah. And so like what we have, what's also nice is like a lot of people think like, it's scored and it's time stamped. And then we have a lead time built in there. So when you click on the takedown, it's not when the manager or whoever hit that button, it goes prior to that. So you can see the setup and the finish, and then you can just continue to click on that spot. And you're exactly right. I mean, some teams and software use uploading video to YouTube and have YouTube channels, and some have Google Drive or whatever it may be. But otherwise, you are sitting in there and you're constantly scrubbing through trying to find specific spots in the video rather than immediately being able to click on whatever you want and watch that part of the video. And then our system just built like normal cameras are built that when you start and stop, it's creating separate files and clips. So you also have teams that have nightmares of like 6, 7 clips a match, or they tell their managers, don't stop the recording, right? Just so we have it as one file. Now you got 10-minute video files for 6 minutes of wrestling. Our app allows you to start and stop as often as you want because we know that that happens in the match, and then it stitches it together automatically right away and keeps it as one file per match. It just keeps you more organized with better tools and availability to it afterwards.
So let's say there's injury time or just whatever, constant nosebleeds. I can hit pause and then it basically is editing while I'm there. I'm cutting out all the fluff in between the actual wrestling time, but
Yep.
it is one big match instead of different clips.
Right. Our system automatically stitches it all together so it's one video file as soon as it's saved. Yep. And then there's other tools in there, like outside of just the scoring, we have this flag marking system that at any point during a video, if you've been working with an athlete on something, you can yell over to your manager, hey, mark that spot in the video. It's just putting a general timestamp spot in that video. It doesn't affect the scoring or anything else, but it gives you a spot to go back to afterwards with an athlete, either immediately or later on, and just say, hey, I marked this spot in the video because we've constantly been working on keeping your head up when you hit your whatever, right? And they can go back to that. And then a coach, has a spot to put extra drawings or notes or whatever he may have been of why he marked that video in that specific spot. So there's great tools in there around that as well.
I mean, the other thing is, and I'm just speaking from my little bit of experience at our tournaments right now, but if I'm a coach, if I'm verbally commenting into that video while they're recording, that means the wrestler or whoever can go back and watch it at any time and basically get the feedback as if they're sitting live with the coach. So the coach can sit with them or the wrestler can just watch it by themselves, and they can watch it almost instantaneously that night in the hotel or that week, whatever. And then they can come back in and review it together or work on something on the mat. So, I mean, my understanding is I can document, like I can type in there some notes or like the whole time I can just talk into it and comment into it verbally. I mean, it's been for our tournaments, we've done it started in September with Columbus Day Duels, and then we had Gridiron, and we've had 2 or 3 tournaments already, and it's already been like a game changer. I mean, the officials have told us that there was an official that said, I've been officiating for 20 years and I've never been evaluated, right? There's other officials that say, like when I do get an evaluation or I do get feedback, it's either verbal or it's written on a piece of paper, but I can never see what I'm doing. Or if the tournament is live streaming, I have to go back to try to find it and piece it all together. Or now, and people have seen it at our tournaments already. They're wondering what all these guys are doing with headsets and iPads on the tripods and all that, in the center of the mats. They think we're doing other things when really we're there doing it for the officials, and they find out. But we're the officials. It's helped them significantly. And then to your point, individually it's helped them, but then also as a group. I mean, Sunday morning before day 2 starts, we have a clinic with the officials every single time, and they can pull up the video or they can talk about specifics. And it's just, to me, I don't know what the costs are, let's say, for the coaches and all that, but and a little bit of an investment. You said you can use your phone, you can use other things. We went ahead and bought the iPads, but that it's not an expense, it's an investment. And the amount of feedback and quality feedback that we've been able to provide to the officials, which I can only imagine how much that could help the actual wrestler, it's priceless. So is there different, and we don't have to get into too much detail besides just telling them to reach out to you guys or check the website, but are there different tiers or levels for the wrestler or their coaches, or is it like you pay, how's the fee structure? How's that set up?
For sure, yeah. So our subscription for colleges and high school boys accounts are the exact same. It's all inclusive. Everything our software has to offer comes at $599 for a team. So $600 gives a team everything that they need. Comes with multiple scorebooks so they can separate out varsity and JV and things like that, making that super simple. The only other things that we have price-wise is if you add an additional account. So you want to add a girls team or your college women's team or anything like that, we do those at $259. We do it discounted to save the program money, but more importantly is to just help girls and women's wrestling grow. We know that budgets are the biggest thing for them kind of getting off the ground. And so we do that at a discounted rate. I will say that we created this last year a freestyle version of our app. So every team has a freestyle scorebook to use it year round now as well too, and built specifically for college women's and like high school girls in New York that are running on freestyle as well too. So they can use it year round that way, but middle school teams, $259, everything like that. The last thing that I would say is that we also offer the exact same platform with no video. It's just a digital scorebook to replace that paper scorebook, completely free for any team that wants to use our software to do that. So getting rid of, you don't have to buy that, I don't know what it is anymore, $30 scorebook or whatever each year. You can use our platform and our app on all of your devices completely free and get the best stats by far in the sport without having to take stats from there and transfer it to an Excel spreadsheet or whatever else they're doing now. But the last thing I want to say is that it's also integrated with track wrestling and USA bracketing. So after any single, there's the 2 biggest things is like at the high school and college level is you have access to all opposing rosters. So if you're using any other platform, you're sitting there afterwards with a video file and you're saying, all right, Billy Johnson versus Tommy so-and-so. I mean, you're having to name and organize that. Our app now allows you to go, all right, 106, it's this guy from my team and that guy from their team. And so it does all that naming and organizing on the fly live while you're doing it. So it makes that part. So that's one of the integrations with both track and USA. But also is that after every event, teams are required to get their results into those platforms. And our system is the only one that has the integration to hit one button and send their results directly into their team profile in track wrestling or USA or flow track, whatever, and USA bracketing to meet all of those requirements as well. And so it saves them countless hours on a lot of different areas throughout the season, naming and organizing video, doing your stats, and then also the requirement that you have through your state or your association to get your results into one of those platforms as well.
So if I go to sign up, is it, 1 year from the date that I sign up is my subscription, or is it like USA membership, September 1 through August 31st kind of a thing?
It's more like that. It's October 1st through September 30th of each year for every team. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if they sign up now or they sign up right before the season starts. It's going to renew on September 30th each year. Yep.
Really? So like back in the day, let's just say before I was self-employed, you're always worried about pinching pennies or saving money, or I'm going to cut my own grass to save $50, whatever it
Right.
may be. When really like build this into your budget or
For sure.
get a sponsor, get somebody to write a check for $600 if you don't have it. But once you take full advantage of all the benefits and really the time savings, I mean,
Absolutely.
that $600 is probably worth $6,000 to them in their time and all the things they're going to get out of it, the highlight films. And really, like, I got to be honest, like $600, I would imagine you could charge at least 1,200. You could probably charge, two, three, four times that amount. And my little bit of conversations with you so far, or like you're saying, you're offering free versions of different things, or depending on the associations, like, you're just trying to make it affordable for people. And you're really, they always say give back, but like you're giving back as best you can while still, being able to sustain a business model. But I mean, what you're offering at that price to me is more than reasonable. And I don't know why everybody wouldn't try it.
Yeah, and in 10 years, we've only gone up a total of $40 with way more tools that are built into it. And so, to your point about time, our most common by far testimonial is the amount of time that coaches are saving, right? And like, I have my Sundays back now. I can watch football rather than chopping video and doing stats all day long or whatever it may be. And so, I mean, I think each coach can put a value on their own time. And if they would rather be, I don't care if it's watching football or actually on the mat with your athletes or spending time with your wife and kids, right? Like whatever that time is valuable to you. I mean, the software takes care of all of that type of things for you. So you have that time back for sure. But I mean, what I would say is that there's a lot of teams that are just starting that have 5, 8, 10 wrestlers only. Like, give us a call anyways. We're willing to work with you. We want to make this work for every team possible. And so it's not that much. Sure, I wish I could charge a lot more, but we're still making it as affordable as possible. When the alternative for other softwares, like I guess I won't say their name again, but like they're having to pay $1,000. But what gets me is like the athletic departments are spending 10, 12, $15,000 on football software for what their football team needs. We're asking for an absolute fraction of that for what the wrestling team really needs to be successful.
Yeah, and really though, like one, I could fundraise, but two, let's just say there's, 30 kids on the team. You charge each kid $10 or $20.
Right.
The parents chip in $20. You know what I mean? Like it's so it's ridiculous. All right. So how, if I'm a coach and I'm listening to this, how can I register? Do I just go on the website? Do I call you? What do I do so I can take advantage of this?
Yeah, check out matboss.com is the website. Go on there, take a look. Underneath our Explore Matboss areas, you can see all about our video product, all about our stats only product, and then you can book time directly with me or somebody else on our team. We'll go through an in-depth demo showing you exactly how it works. 30 minutes of your time, you'll be able to understand completely the in and out of all of that. Once we get you started, we have the best training opportunities for your staff, your managers. We'll go through everything, making sure you guys are comfortable before the season starts. And then, as much as we're a wrestling company and a software company, I would say our support is second to no one. And so we're there to take care of you, all wrestling minded, and know exactly what you're dealing with and when and why, and are able to help you out too. So we're here to support everything around you and your team.
I think that's a lot of things like, our company, I want to say we're probably one of the only wrestling organizations in the country to have a CRM system, right? So like, and honestly, I question it every day. I say to Mackenzie, like, are we getting, the return on our investment? But, you know, I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of times you know that the product or the service is beneficial, but a lot of times you don't know how to use it. So you're paying for something, but then you don't know how to use it. So in fact, that you're sitting there holding their hand and showing the managers, the coaches, the support staff how to use your product so they can take full advantage of it and not just piss away, their money. And I think that's the biggest thing. But I'll tell you, like, we jumped on that first call. You flew out to Columbus Day Duels. Every time I've called you or texted you, you respond right away. I don't know everybody else at the company, but I know you've been extremely responsive. So, a couple other things for you, not directly, but in a nutshell, can just how I always like to wrap it back in when I can, when I do have a wrestling guy on the podcast, but how is wrestling, no matter if you were the best or the worst wrestler out there, but how has wrestling really impacted your life personally and professionally?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest thing is just like the work ethic that you develop in the sport, right? I mean, like I can't think of anything that I've had to deal with outside of wrestling that was as hard as a college practice that I had, right? And so I think it's twofold. Like there are some days when I have three little kids that are harder than ever, that seem easy, easy as can be compared to what a practice was, right? And then all the way down to like there's tough days at work, right? And like and starting a company, we bootstrapped and we grinded as hard as we could to make it successful. And like I just think the work ethic and the value in working hard was kind of built in the sport of wrestling and really transforms into everything on my day-to-day basis for sure. And so I know that people struggle with different things for sure, but like even my kids in their sports that they're in now, like they're not wrestling yet as of now, but like just having them learn like what it is to work hard and commit to that sport and learn as much as they can. Just it gives them that same work ethic, hopefully, in every avenue after that. And so I'd say that's the biggest thing for sure from the sport.
Yeah. Not necessarily wrestling specific, but what advice, and I'll just end with this, but what advice can you give any aspiring entrepreneur out there?
Yeah, I'd give a couple things. I mean, one we kind of you touched on briefly earlier, but I think it's surrounding yourself with other people, right? And one of the biggest things I learned, at a young age was like figure out who your Mount Rushmore is, right? If those four guys that you should lean into and lean on for advice about different things, like find the guy that was successful that you can learn from, find the guy that failed multiple times, and then was successful. Why did he fail? How did he turn that into a success after that? And then just find good people as well to surround yourself that believe in you. And then find that person that keeps you accountable, right? You say you're going to do something, they're going to make sure that you're doing it. And so I think surrounding yourself with good people goes a long ways. And then the other thing I would tell, what I see in entrepreneurs nowadays is, uh, work as hard as you can and fight as long as you can before you have to take on investment and before you have to immediately go out and raise cap. I mean, like raising money in entrepreneurs or for entrepreneurs right now seems like the biggest topic and things that people talk about. We're on a series this and a series that. It's like if you believe in it enough, like grind harder and make it work yourself and sacrifice that brand new truck for some car that's going to get you around for a while to own more of your company. And so, yes, I understand that at a certain point, company may need funds and that will exponentially grow their company. But for as long as you can, grind as hard as you can before you have to go down that avenue.
I mean, I think one of the tough things for me too has been like knowing when to change directions. I don't want to say like quit or give up on something or an idea, but like knowing when to change directions or not going so far or so long into something when you just know it potentially is not going to work. Like it's okay to like change up, right? So, all right. Well, anything that we didn't already talk about that you want our guys to know about you or the company?
No, I mean, reach out. I think I'd love to, Cory, just like you had invited us out to the Columbus Day duels. If you're a coach in a certain part of the country, I mean, I'll say in the Midwest, there's a lot of coaching clinics and conferences that we attend almost every weekend. But if there's a great event in your area, tournament or coaching clinic or convention or regional rules meeting or whatever it may be that we can get in front of coaches, I'd love the opportunity to come out and show the coaches in your area how they can continue to grow as a team and better their team through software like ours. And so reach out anytime about any opportunities like that. And then I'd just love to show you more about Matboss and how it works.
You were there all weekend. You didn't come in until late on Friday or Saturday morning?
Friday afternoon, I was there for your guys' meetings Friday night with the officials, and then I left Sunday morning.
Okay. Did you get a chance to meet Lauren Peterson, the Beast director?
I did, yeah. We've had some conversations. I'm hopefully going to do a meeting with him here in the coming weeks. Great guy.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll make sure, again, I'll put it out there. I know I guess we announced it at the conference, but we didn't necessarily put it on social media or anything yet, but we'll get our websites updated. We'll announce it on social media, but we are excited about our partnership with you, both from Tyrant Wrestling and the NWOA. And you've been nothing but helpful so far. And I look forward to growing that relationship. So thank you so much for everything so far.
Yeah, appreciate it, Cory. Thanks for having me on today too.
All right, Tyler, have a great one. Thank you.
You too.